Hi everybody, Adam here. Welcome back to our Lego room. Really excited today. We're going to be putting our Union Pacific Lego train through its paces on our elevated track layout. This is a cool milestone. We've run several trains up there now, but I'd say this is probably the biggest, most custom train that we've had up on the elevated track there. And, interested to see how it performs, how it looks. I'm expecting it to look amazing as it moves around the Lego room. I've been really happy with how the elevated track looks and how it's performed. So this is just another logical step along the way here to, running any and all trains in our collection up here on the basically ceiling height track. Another exciting milestone here. We've also opened up the end of the Lego room here enough that we can get the ladder back in to get up and put, trains up onto the elevated track and bring them back down again. So really happy with that. You can keep an eye out around the Lego room as well. Several projects that we've got on the go that we'll cover in upcoming videos, but let's get the Union Pacific train rolling up there and see how this works. First off, though, the view from up here never gets old. A really cool way to see the Lego room in general and to see the elevated track up here as well. Looking forward to getting a camera on the train up here at some point in the near future to get some interesting footage around the Lego room. But let's start the train up and see how it works. So far, so good. Such an awesome looking train. I really love the way it looks and performs. The coloring on it is excellent. That looks awesome too. I'm looking forward to seeing that at a closer angle from the other end of the room there. But moving across the open part of the space there looks really cool. That all seems to be working fairly well. Like I said, it's kind of what I expected, but you never know. Until you get things running, you never know if there'll be some sort of oddity that happens. This is incidentally on the inside track. So there are two track lines going up there. So two trains can be running at once on separate lines. It all seems pretty smooth. Makes my heart skip a beat as it comes around that corner back over here just because of how close it gets to the edge. But there's really, it's all well supported under there. Should be no issues. Oh, we came loose. Just a sec here. Okay, so it was the B unit that came off the track slightly. Thought everything was nicely on the track. Maybe I had missed one set of wheels there, or maybe something caught those wheels as it was going around. So we're gonna fire it back up again now that everything's back on the track nicely and see how it performs from here. Okay, so everything should be good to go. Let's start it back up. We will see if we run it around another couple laps here, whether we get anything funny happening with those wheels coming off the track again. Yeah, I feel like it just did something there. Yeah, I think it's off again. I'm gonna let it get around the corner there. And then we'll see if we can get it reseated. I might try taking out the B unit. I'm curious if there's something funny. Well, we'll see. Let it get around to that back corner there, because that'll be just an easier spot to access. Don't have it running very fast, but let's just come around that corner and let's stop there. So I'm gonna grab the ladder back. When I'm on this side of the room, I actually need to use a chair to get up to access the track because the gap isn't wide enough for the ladder there. But the ladder is fine on that end of the room, so I will get that back over there and we can take a look at what might be going on with the B unit. Okay, everything is back onto the tracks. It was the front wheel set on the B unit again that had come off. I think this might just be some funniness with the magnetic coupling connection between the locomotive and the B unit. That back wheel set on the locomotive is a little sticky. I've got the 2 powered up motors in there, and with the back set of powered wheels, it can be a little sticky when it's turning and going back and forth around corners. Haven't really had much of an issue with it on the tabletop layout, but it's possible that things are a little more or a little less forgiving up here on the elevated track. We're going to try it one more time, see how things work. If the issue pops up again, then we're going to swap in the Maersk locomotive and see if that performs a little better for the elevated track pulling the Union Pacific train cars. So we'll back up a little bit here just so it's easier to see, and we'll start things up. Gonna have it running at a fairly slow speed. I just want to see kind of how it's performing here. Yeah, it's done that. It's done it again. I think this is a locomotive connection issue. Let's try getting the Maersk locomotive up there. I think it will be much more forgiving in this situation. Okay, so we've got the Maersk pulling 4 of the train cars. I took the locomotive and the B unit out. I'm expecting this to run pretty smoothly. I don't think there should be any issues now. So far, so good. I think everything looks like it's running as expected. The other advantage of shrinking the train down by a car there, in addition to swapping the locomotives, is it just makes it less likely that in this short run here I'm going to overload the Maersk with its 1 motor. Seems like it's running pretty well. Doing what I had expected from the beginning, which is good to see. I think we are just going to have to do some work on the Union Pacific in an upcoming, we'll probably do an upcoming video on it. We'll do some tests. I feel like there's just a few things that are kind of getting a little worn, and it just needs a little bit of TLC, I think, to get it back up and running as smoothly as we had it before. And I really need to get the motor situation fixed up in the A unit for that, which we've got there. Need to get a second motor installed there, probably swap the one that's in there right now and just bring it back up to its full speed and sort of full normal power and way that it operates. And need to just do a little bit of work as well on my other Union Pacific locomotive that we had out there at the beginning. Try to fix up the second motor there in the back end of that one. I feel like, it's just not moving as freely as I want it to there. But I think with a little bit of work, we can get those issues sorted out. And yeah, this is looking great. I wish the Union Pacific locomotive had been able to handle it all, but the Maersk is proving to be the champion here and showing us how things are done. Really awesome to see that moving around the room. Yeah, it's running really smoothly. Really nice to see. The back-to-back corners there is a tough challenge. Even with the wider radius curves from Trix bricks that we're using up there, still gives it a little bit of a pause when it's going corner to corner. Not much ultimately that we can do about that. I mean, it's really a triple corner when you think about it, but not too much that can be done. That's kind of the reality of that space over there. Let's move this way so that we can see the train from some different angles. Step around things so that don't knock anything over. Yeah, that looks great. In general, I think now that I feel pretty comfortable, I think we can try to run a number of different trains up there over time. Pretty smooth. I know there's still probably a couple things that we want to fix with the inner, or I guess depending on how you look at it, I guess the Maersk is currently on the inner track, and the outer track, which is closest to the wall, there are a couple spots where the train cars can rub up against the wall a little bit. So we just need to make a few tweaks there just to make sure we've got clearance between the track and the wall. But overall, I think I'd feel pretty comfortable running anything up there at this point. The only trick is just need to come up with a more sort of universal way of taking trains up and down off of there, getting up to, operate on trains if there's, gotchas, if something derails, if batteries run out. It's, quite easy when we've got the ladder over in that corner and there's enough space around there. It works out quite well for taking trains up and down. But, like we had today where there was a derailment over on this side over here, the ladder doesn't fit down that gap between the bookcases and the layout. So it gets a little more interesting. And I know just at some point in the future, we will get a train that stops on one of these middle of the room sections here, like either right here or down at the other end of the layout there against the wall. And we're just gonna have to have sort of a protocol or a way to get up to the track level and operate on the train sort of regardless of where they are around the room. But this is pretty cool. Happy to have easy access to the track now from over by the Acro Mills containers. We'll keep tidying that side of the room up and opening up more space there so that hopefully we can consistently access things from over there. And we will have to think about what train to run next on the upper layout. We could run several more different sets of cars with the Maersk locomotive, but we will need to think about what other trains might be fun to have up there. I definitely think we could run the Horizon Express at some point up there, some of our other passenger trains. And, eventually maybe we could even run the Winter Village train up there. The North Pole Railroad locomotive and train cars might be fun to have up on the elevated track periodically. The one thing we'll have to watch out with that one is just making sure, definitely that there's enough clearance between the track and the wall and the track and the supports here for this part that goes over the middle of the room. Just because the train cars on the North Pole Railroad are longer and, are longer and wider, a little oversized compared to the standard trains that we are typically running around the layout and the elevated track. So just something we'll watch out for, but a cool milestone here. Looking forward to running more trains up here. And like I said, I think we're going to have hopefully in the next week or so here, we can spend some time getting the Union Pacific back up to par and sort of where we want it to be in terms of both the locomotives and just the train cars on the train in general. It has been our main workhorse for quite a while. We've run it at a lot of shows and a lot of times around the layouts here in the Lego room. So time for some TLC, take a look at the wheels, take a look at the motor situation, try to make a number of improvements there, but that should be a fun project and probably a long overdue project as well. It's just one of those things where you've got a train that is running so consistently. It's bound to need some maintenance every now and then. Love seeing it's just such a love how that track turned out, all the elevated shelving up there. Lots of cool views of the trains as they move around. And just leads to some cool views in general, and that neat to see trains moving over top of some of these different areas around the room. Corner definitely is a challenge there, but once it gets through that, it doesn't have any issues really on any of the other corners. Pretty smooth all around. And this run over the middle of the room here is definitely my favorite. Like I said, I would like to get a first-person view or some different camera views from the elevated track area there and from trains moving around on the upper level. That's something we're going to play around with a bit more as well. That's another one, like I said, that will kind of depend on the clearances. So we'll probably do some tests, see what we can do in terms of having just my iPhone moving around on the train versus potentially getting, like a GoPro or some other sort of smaller camera to ride on the train. Lots of different options to consider there, but I think it will be, it's cool being up on a ladder in the corner of the room and seeing how the room looks and seeing the train moving along up there. But it's definitely, I think, going to be an even better perspective when we've got the camera on the train there, and so it's the train's point of view. So I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. Really happy with how this has ultimately worked out here with the Maersk locomotive. Like I mentioned, I want to get these quirks sorted out with the Union Pacific. So we'll hopefully have some time in the next week or two here to start doing some repair work on that, or at least some tests to see which changes give us the sort of best results. But with that, I'd like to get our standard A unit locomotive back paired up with that train, and also, get our second Union Pacific locomotive polished up as well so that it can run as smoothly as we want, especially around the elevated layout. Hasn't been doing too bad on the main layout loop, but maybe, we'll see. We'll run some tests both on the tabletop layout and the elevated layout. That's probably the best way to get a sort of full picture of how the train is running and making sure that the changes we're putting in place are addressing all the issues. Because in the end, I want to get to a place where all the different locomotives, all the different train cars can be run smoothly on all of the track layouts we have. The elevated track, tabletop, and the under table layout as well. Now, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please make sure to do so that you don't miss out on any of our upcoming videos. Lots of great stuff ahead on the channel. A lot of cool projects in flight in the Lego room here. So you don't want to miss out on that. And thank you guys very much for watching. We will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.